Welcome to Proclaiming Justice, a podcast from PJTN that focuses the light of truth on vital issues in today's headlines that impact every American. I'm your host, Laurie Cardoza-Moore, founder and president of Proclaiming Justice to the Nations, and I'm here to educate, motivate, and activate you to action. I want to arm you with the truth and the facts you'll need to fight and preserve our constitutional republic and uphold the Judeo-Christian values our nation was founded upon. Welcome to Proclaiming Justice, a PJTN podcast, and I'm your host, Laurie Cardoza-Moore. If you missed the last episode of this podcast, you will find it and our previous podcast lineup on our website at pjtn.org, as well as all the other platforms that you use to access your favorite podcasts. On this week's podcast, I have invited Lisa Nehring with True North Homeschool Academy. I also want to remind our audience that as PJTN Watchmen, it's our biblical duty to listen and share this and all of our previous podcasts with your family and friends so that they can take action against the issues that threaten our republic and the state of Israel. So please remember to like and share. As it goes with Israel, so shall it go with America. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us on Proclaiming Justice.
Laurie, thank you for having me. What an honor.
Well, it is an honor to have you on our show because you are doing something very unique, and our audience hears me constantly talk about homeschooling. You are the head of True North Homeschooling Academy. And I want our audience, because this is an area where a lot of people in our audience have never even considered doing. But I wanted to introduce to them your organization because you're helping parents to make that bridge during this difficult time in our country as it pertains to education in the classroom. Tell us about your organization.
Right. Well, we started in 2018. I'd homeschooled for many years. We homeschooled for a total of 30 years. We have 5 kids who are now between the ages of 21 and 38. And in 2018, I started True North Homeschool Academy. I worked for 12 of the 30 years that we homeschooled. So as my kids got older and aged out of homeschooling, I had a couple kids who were still homeschooling and I was working. And anybody who has worked full time and tried to educate their kids and do all the things knows it's a job, right? And so I started True North Homeschool Academy as a way to fill in the gaps and the needs that we had as a family, and it just grew exponentially from there. Right now, we have kids from all over the world. We have over 25 teachers from coast to coast, Israel, Mexico, and Italy. Wow. And we serve several hundred families a year. Students can take partial classes with us, but we have many, many families who were their school, and so they sign up with us year after year and take their entire credit program with us. We also just are standing up a dual enrollment program this fall, so students can actually earn a bachelor's degree while they're earning their high school diploma.
That's incredible. That's amazing that you provide all of this for parents who are considering homeschooling. So, Lisa, tell us a little bit about the process, because I'm sure you've heard many parents say, homeschooling may be okay for you, but there's no way I can do that. How do you approach a response to parents who are fearful of trying to educate their children at home?
Right. I think parents are really concerned right now, especially since 2020 and post-COVID. COVID really highlighted some of the issues that are going on in public and private schools, and many parents weren't aware of them. You talk about this all the time on Proclaiming Justice for the Nations, that we have to be aware of what's going on in our school system, and it gave everybody a front row seat to some of the very concerning ideology taking place. I also heard from many parents of students who are Black or Hispanic that they didn't realize the racism that was going on towards their kids in the classroom. So there's a lot of really concerning issues happening right now. Education is maybe taking a back seat. I wrote a master's degree on the history of education, so we could talk about that for hours. But really, the reason why education was so important at the beginning of the foundation of this country and why it was promoted privately and by churches was so that every student would have the literacy needed to read the Bible for themselves. It wasn't really necessarily about quote unquote education as we know it today, math, reading, writing, arithmetic, science, and history. It was really about personal ownership of the scripture. And so in the late 1800s, during the Second Industrial Revolution, social reformers like Horace Mann and John Dewey, they imported the Prussian system of education, just like we imported the Prussian system of military into our country. And what that did was during the Second Industrial Revolution is it allowed massive groups of people to go through an educational program where they learned a common language, i.e. English, and they understood some of the foundations of this country. But the shift was there. It wasn't so much about reading scripture and owning your faith as much anymore. And we see this in how literacy rates dropped, because before, when it was a private educational system and model, the literacy rates in America were well over 90%, even among some slave populations. However, after we created this mass industrial type of government school system, literacy rates have fallen and they've continued to plummet over the years. So parents are nervous, not just about homeschooling, but about what they see in the public school classroom. And what I would say to parents is this is the best time to homeschool. There are so many amazing resources. You don't have to go it alone. It's not like 30 years ago when you were maybe worried about having your kids play outside because someone's going to report you to the authorities. It's a well-established tradition. And now, since 2020, with ESA and charter dollars, there's actually government assistance for you to provide amazing programs for your kids. So there's never been a better time to homeschool. And again, the lines are very blurry right now. Our classes are taught live online. So that means your students can go online with us and have an international student body with a subject matter expert. We have a PhD teaching our high school level science classes. I mean, can you imagine having a molecular biologist teach you biology, right? So there's never been a better time. And it is not as expensive as you might think. I did a blog post several months ago on the actual cost of public, private, and homeschool. And most people say public school is free. Well, for one, your tax dollars pay for it. Secondly, on average, most parents are spending $1,600 per student in the public school system. And that's not for fancy pants programs like gymnastics or archery or anything. That's just like for tissues and all the other little miscellaneous expenses that add up. And so public school isn't free. Private school absolutely is not free. And homeschooling is not free, although you could do it totally for free if you wanted. But I've really found it's time or money. So parents who are worried, they just need to sign up for one of our 15-minute free academic advising sessions, and let's talk about it, because there's some great options out there for you.
Yes, and you bring up a very important point that, we are living at a time when homeschooling is looking more appealing to parents than ever before. And it's because of the indoctrination going on. And as our audience knows, that our mission at PJTN is to combat the anti-Semitism in curriculum. And we have found anti-Semitic content in textbooks, in instructional materials that is fueling this hatred. You just mentioned about some of the Black students and minority students that are being targeted. And we know this even within the Jewish community. We're having a problem with Jewish students being targeted and being ridiculed. Jewish teachers having to lock themselves in their closets. People are looking at, going forward, how can I provide a good education in a safe environment for my children anymore, other than through homeschooling?
Right. Well, again, homeschooling isn't just sitting alone in your house at your kitchen table with the doors locked because you're afraid people are going to know you're homeschooling. Most homeschoolers are doing a combination of many things. They're taking online classes. They're going to a local co-op or an academic class day. They're doing dual enrollment college classes. They're doing so many cool extracurricular activities. On average, homeschoolers are far more engaged in extracurricular and political activities than your average public or private school student. So anybody who says homeschool kids are unsocialized. Really, the thing is they're socialized in a different way. They're not
Right.
unsocialized. They have a plethora of activities to choose from and are very engaged in it. But they're socializing in a much more rich and vibrant way. They're socializing with people across age groups, across
Mhm.
societal, norms, and they're very good at interacting with people regardless of the situation.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, one of the biggest things that I see from the very foundation of education in the United States is the illiteracy that is so rampant. And unfortunately, we have used our children in the public schools as guinea pigs for every program government can, send down the pike. And we have only damaged our children. Our children can't read, they can't write. I was having a conversation with a parent a couple weeks ago and talking about longhand, that her child doesn't write in longhand, that they just write their name. And it's, there doesn't seem to be any interest in by the teacher in second grade or even in third grade of teaching longhand, and why longhand is so important. Something as simple as writing, or we may know it as cursive, that to write longhand is important, because if you can't write longhand, you can't read it. If you can't read longhand, then when our children go to read our founding documents, they won't be able to read what rights are being taken from them. This is so important, just like reading is critically important. And we have failed. We've utterly failed in the education system across this country. So, Lisa, tell me, where are you from? And, one of the other questions that I hear from parents that are considering homeschooling, and they've got kids in high school and they want to know about the testing. Will they be able to get their child into a good university? And, I hear that and I think there is no good university except for some of the Christian universities like Liberty and Hillsdale but what would you say to those parents who are concerned? Are the children going to are they going to test well? Is SAT, still important, being able to take the SAT test? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, a lot of things changed since 2020. A lot of colleges decided that they didn't need test scores anymore, partly because the ACT and SAT weren't online, and so they didn't have a good way to deliver them. Now they've put them all online, and some colleges and universities are saying, yeah, we want test scores. The deal with test scores is they're the fastest way to get scholarship dollars. And the real question for parents is this. Most parents are concerned, will my kids be able to get into a good college or university? And just like you said, Laurie, the you need to define good for you and your student. Most students renounce their Christian faith by Thanksgiving of their freshman year. Barna just put out a poll that said 80% of them do not return to their faith, their evangelical faith.
Wow.
That is heartbreaking and should be very concerning for parents. So the question is not, can my kid get into college? Because your kid can get into college. There are so many new programs for students. Even if you have a low IQ student, even in the mid 60s, there's college programs for your kids. The baby boom is over, and colleges do need to keep paying for their facilities and pension plans and all of that. The real question for parents is, how am I going to pay for my kid to get into college? Because student loans are deregulated, and so even a few $1,000s of debt can balloon and skyrocket if your kid takes a deferment, which is completely legal. Dave Ramsey does a great documentary on his website about this, and he says it much more articulately than I do. But parents need to be very aware of any student loans that their kids take out. And that's even like under $10,000, unless they can pay it off and have a strategy for paying it off quickly. Most kids graduate in 6 years, not 4, with over $37,000 in debt. Over half of students who enter college are not graduating. So over 1 million students a year drop out. So it's time for parents to really re-strategize education, not just at the elementary and high school level, but really at the college level. Because again, a lot of the woke ideology at colleges, you're seeing this all the time, Laurie, and you were talking about this just a little bit ago, is that a lot of kids go to colleges and their parents are finding that they're watching in these terrorist groups. I mean, what
Right.
happened here? They're not even aware that there is so much money being pumped into our universities from outside sources, including terrorist organizations, and the
Yes.
colleges are taking that money because, again, the baby boom is over, and they need that money to keep their facilities going. So, parents, if you're worried about your kid getting to college, for one, homeschoolers generally score higher on standardized tests than public school kids, and secondly, it is a strategy test. It's not a test of how much your kids know. It's a test of how well can your kids strategize the test. So there's many great programs you can take for test prep, and just figure out some simple strategies to help them get through it. Make sure that they answer all the questions. They're going to be four answers for every question. 2 of them are throwaway. Get rid of those 2, and you have a 50% chance of getting the last 2 questions correct. Just really simple strategies like that. Also, the other thing parents need to understand is that it's a 5-hour test crammed into 3 hours. When is the last time we all took a 3-hour test? So we
Right.
need to make sure that our kids get ready for it and have some practice exams and those kind of things. But absolutely, homeschool students, listen, the academies and the Ivy Leagues are recruiting homeschool students because they know how to study and they show up. The other thing a lot of people are not realizing is that the test scores have been changed like 3 times since 2001. And so it's some of the test scores are being dumbed down. They're really getting changed significantly. And colleges and universities are looking for students who can come to their program and complete it and have a standout factor. Many of the homeschool students have incredible standout factors. I've worked with students they've put in patents, they've started their own businesses, they've built drones from a 3D printer. they're licensed pilots, just crazy, crazy things that these homeschool students are doing. And colleges love that and are willing to give scholarship money to it. So anybody who's concerned about getting to college, that's part of what we do at True North Homeschool Academy. And we'd love to chat with you because it's not going to be difficult for your kids to get into a good college university with the correct strategy. And also just really think about the return on your investment, not just financially, but spiritually, socially. What about the physical health of your student? Just take those things into account too. And we're in the 4th industrial revolution. It's time to reimagine and rethink education because a lot of the systems that we've looked to and relied on over the course of our lives, for those of us who are over 40 or 50 and grew up in middle class America, those systems are really radically changing. It's a time of disruption. So healthcare, education, the government, they're all in disruption. They're all struggling and stressing and crumbling and regrouping and trying to figure out how they're going to keep going. And so as parents, we have this really amazing opportunity right now to really reimagine education for our kids. What do we want them to know? What are we passionate about? Laurie, one of the things we have in common with your family is our family has been very passionate about history and biblical roots. And so one of my daughters graduated from high school fluent in Hebrew. We have a rabbi from Israel who teaches our students at True North biblical and modern Hebrew, biblical feasts and festivals, the Old Testament. So we have this amazing opportunity in front of us where we can have world-class teachers come to our home via Zoom and other technology and deliver a world-class, unique educational system for our kids. And
That's
anybody
fantastic.
who doesn't know how to put that together, that's what I do. That is like just the joy of my life, is to help other parents really get clear about what are their goals, what is God calling you, what you and your family to, what is God calling each of your students to, because our kids are born for this disrupted, crazy, concerning world right now. It's not a mistake. The master of the universe placed them here and now for a specific purpose, and we need to equip them well. And you mentioned illiteracy in this country. A lot of our high school students are graduating with what is called functional literacy. That means that they can function linguistically and numerically at the 5th grade level. But that doesn't mean that they can critically think. It doesn't mean that they can creatively collaborate with others. It doesn't mean that they can communicate complex, synergized ideas with others. And that's the opportunity we have as parents as we homeschool right now, is to take our kids way past functional literacy, get to them to the point of being experts in a certain area. My youngest daughter is 21. She can hold her own with almost anybody on the Middle East. She's fluent in Hebrew. She's had a very unique private homeschooled education that she got really focused on at a young age because of what God had placed in her heart. And so, that's the opportunity we have as parents right now. I just want to encourage anybody, if you're worried about the educational system or the cost of it, most private schools start at $15,000 for elementary even, and go up from there. I talked to somebody a couple months ago who said they were considering a private high school $50,000 a year for a private.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, for high school. And so you can homeschool for under $10,000 and give them a private, personalized education. And again, your kid's not going to be locked in their household. And there's so many opportunities for our kids as they homeschool. And they have the time then to invest in things like politics, or becoming an expert on the Middle East, or becoming a professional painter, or starting a business, or reading 100 books a year. That's the gift of homeschooling. You have the time to be able to be really intentional about where you want your kids to be.
That's amazing, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing that. It reminds me of a conversation I had with my daughter several months ago. And she said, Mom, the one thing that I don't have in common with my peers is I grew up with my mom and dad at home. And that so impacted me when she said that. She said, nobody else shares that with me. She said, the fact that we were able to stay home every day and you and Dad worked from the home and raised us. She said, it just amazes me. And it amazed me as her mother, her even saying that. You don't think that our kids think along those terms, but this came right out of her mouth. And so for those parents who are listening, you've heard me talk about homeschooling, how important it is. We need to engage. We need to equip our children to engage the culture. And the best way to do that is through homeschooling. And Lisa, I want to thank you so much. How can our audience, again, if you'll just let us know how our audience can reach out to you, contact you to get more information, because you sound like a instead of a student guidance counselor, a parent guidance counselor for homeschooling.
Yeah, you can find us at truenorthhomeschool.academy. That's our website, and we list all of our programs, and we have free advising on there and a lot of great resources for parents and students. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. We have a podcast called It's Not That Hard to Homeschool, and we have several Facebook pages and groups. So if you go to our main Facebook group, It's Not That Hard, or True North Homeschool Academy, you can find us from there. We also own It's Not That Hard to Homeschool and Blue Collar Homeschool. So we're really all about equipping parents to intentionally educate their kids.
Fantastic. You're doing amazing work. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found this program informative. We will post this podcast on our website and all of our podcast platforms so that you can share with your family and friends. As PJTN Watchmen, we have a biblical mandate to stand against the ungodly rising Nazi threat that is destroying this nation and other Western nations, threatening our Judeo-Christian values and promoting anti-Semitism. We cannot remain silent. God warned the prophet Ezekiel about the responsibility, the duty of the watchman. And as a watchman, you can sound the alarm and warn others by simply sharing this podcast with your family and friends. So please share and like this podcast to help sound the alarm in your community. Dietrich Bonhoeffer reminded us that silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. Don't forget to join us for next week's podcast as we continue this conversation about combating the rise of anti-Semitism and taking back local control of our communities and our children's education. I want to also remind you that if you have not signed up to become a PJTN Watchman, you can help support this mission through our award-winning documentaries and Focus on Israel programs, as well as more programs like this for just $20 a month. So go to our website at pjtn.org to watch our programs and listen to our past podcasts. With your generous monthly donation, you can ensure that PJTN remains on the front lines and in the headlines, but we can't do it without your faithful prayers and financial support. I hope that you will prayerfully consider supporting our mission as we educate to activate Jews, Christians, and all people of conscience to stand on the front lines of this all-encompassing war. God bless you, and thank you for all you do on behalf of our Jewish brethren, the State of Israel, and these United States. Thank you again for joining me on this edition of Proclaiming Justice. Please share this podcast with your family and friends. For more information about how you can get involved, please visit our website at pjtn.org. As a PJTN Watchman, you can help us keep up the fight to preserve our freedom for our children and their children for such a time as this.